We are free people, chants this crowd. During the coronavirus pandemic, they say wearing a mask and adhering to restrictions is violating that freedom. And it seems thousands agree. A mixture of conspiracy theorists, far-right figures and citizens concerned by the economic effects of the lockdown took to the streets of Berlin to say the coronavirus has been a false alarm. That's just plain scare tactics. I don't see any danger. I don't know any sick people. I knew many sick people in March, skiers, vacationers. There was really something going on in February, but now there's no sick people anymore. I've got a friend who is 93. She's in a care home, in her room, totally isolated. There's no corona in her home, and yet she wasn't allowed to leave her room. Now she's allowed to go out for a walk again, but if she meets someone, she has to give their address. I think that's extreme. Our demand is back to democracy. Get rid of the laws that restrict us. Get rid of the masks that turn us into slaves. Hardly any of the demonstrators were wearing face masks or adhering to social distancing protocols. Berlin police attempted to enforce distancing measures over megaphones, eventually dissolving the protests and telling people to go home. German politicians mostly condemned the demonstration, saying that it risks harming Germany's relative success at handling the outbreak. That success might just be why these people feel impatient to get back to normal life. But with a fresh spike in COVID cases across the country, a gathering of thousands of people not wearing masks could jeopardise the freedoms Germans are enjoying compared to many other countries hit by the pandemic.
Well, with me in the studio now is DW political correspondent Leonie von Hammerstein, who is at the protest. Leonie, you were out there for hours, you told me. You spoke to lots of people there. What were they telling you? What were their demands?
Well, there were a lot of different people out there, and as you said, we spoke to many of them. Some of their demands including by the organizers who put their demands in a document before the event, calling on that it's the end of the pandemic. They called this the Day of Freedom. They then called on the German government to resign and on the state, the public broadcasters, so the media, to also be dissolved. And these were the three demands that were echoed by many people who I spoke to at the protest. What united them was a distrust in the government's measures. And we have to remember, this is kind of a paradox. You said it just now. A lot of the people were telling me, well, the government was telling us that we have to keep our distance, stick to all these restrictions in order for the hospitals not to be overcrowded, in order for people not to die. But nobody died. Not that many people died. The hospitals are still empty. So what did the government tell us in the first place? And this is why this inherent distrust in what the government is telling them. And that's why I saw today tens of thousands of people take to the streets, not adhering to the rules, not adhering to the face masks. They kind of use, a lot of them were telling me they see the face mask as sort of that symbol of oppression, that the government is forcing them to wear masks. I mean, we also have to remember Germany has released a lot of its measures, a lot of its restrictions in recent weeks, which has, as you said, we've seen a surge in new infections.
So enormous amounts of distrust of the government. But who are these people, Leonie? I mean, I'm wondering because lots of people are quite grateful to the German government for its swift response to the pandemic and the measures that it implemented. They're grateful that it saved lives. But these people who don't believe that, who are they?
Well, there also, there's a wide variety of people who attended these protests today. What we can say, some people were talking to me, there were people who were worried about the economic consequences of the pandemic. There was a bus driver from Croatia who told me, well, I haven't been able to run my business for 4 months. How should I survive? There have been people who were worried about their children not being able to go back to school, which they are, but the education system being changed, worried about what this pandemic will leave, what kind of country will it leave to the children. But we also have to say that far-right groups have been mobilizing for this protest. Not only the AfD, the party that sits the biggest opposition party in the German Bundestag, also the NPD, Compact magazine, which is a far-right magazine that's under the observation of the authorities for xenophobic and revisionist messages, conspiracy theorists. I talked to some people who believed that Bill Gates wanted to vaccinate the whole world. So really, these conspiracy theories that we are not only seeing in Germany, but also across the world, where people use this pandemic to feed into these conspiracy theories. A lot of them also anti-Semitic backgrounds. We saw some placards there today, so it's hard to say. I'd say the majority was peaceful, but I'd also say we got a lot of verbal abuse from protesters who were calling us liars and who were calling us Lügenpresse, so, you know...
Lying press. I mean, that's echoing Nazi terminology, is it not?
Yes, exactly.
Leonie von Hammerstein, thank you so much for your reporting and for sharing your impressions with us in the studio. Thank you.